November 4th, 2026, Washington, D.C., 11:47 p.m. Eastern Time. The networks call it, "The Republicans have lost the House." Somewhere in the West Wing, a television goes dark. In a single night, the last piece of a political majority assembled just 24 months earlier collapses, not from a scandal, not from a war, not even from a single catastrophic decision, from something older, something structural, something that no president, Democrat, or Republican has found a way to stop. And here's the question nobody in Washington wants to answer. What if no party is ever meant to hold power for long? And America is finally proving it. To understand what happened in November 2026, we need to go back, not just 2 years, we need to go back to the year 2000, because that is where the pattern begins, in the final 13 elections of the 20th century. Spanning from 1960 to 2000, control of the House, the Senate, or the White House changed hands between the parties just 5 times in 40 years. Power, in that era, was durable. Majorities were earned and held. Then, something broke. Since the election of 2000, control of at least one chamber of Congress or the White House has flipped in 11 of the 13 elections that followed. 11 of 13. That is an 84% volatility rate. That is not a trend. That is a systemic rupture. The numbers tell the story bluntly. In 2006, Democrats swept the House. In 2010, Republicans took it back, gaining 63 seats in a single night, the largest midterm wave since 1938. In 2018, Democrats retook the House with a 40-seat swing. In 2022, Republicans reclaimed it again, barely. And in 2024, Donald Trump returned to the White House with a Republican trifecta, the presidency, the Senate, and the House. A clean sweep. It looked, for a moment, like dominance had returned. It was not dominance. It was the peak of the wave, and every wave, eventually, breaks. Between January 2025 and mid-2026, the Trump administration did not govern quietly. By April 2026, President Trump had signed 254 executive orders, 59 memoranda, and 136 proclamations. That is a volume of executive action with almost no modern precedent in a comparable time frame. The Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, cut more than 71,900 federal jobs. USAID was dissolved. The White House East Wing was demolished without filing plans with the legally required oversight body. The Kennedy Center bore a new name. The federal government's footprint shrank by 10%, and the Republican majority in the House sat at 220 seats, just 2 above the threshold needed to govern. That margin was not a mandate, it was a tightrope. Here's what that number meant. In practice, every defection mattered, every special election mattered, every approval rating point lost mattered. This was not an accident. The timing was not a coincidence, because the narrower the majority, the more any shift in public sentiment becomes catastrophic, and the public was already shifting. By spring of 2026, the political environment had hardened against the Republican majority. A Quinnipiac poll conducted in mid-April found Trump's overall approval at 38%, with 55% disapproving. A Reuters Ipsos poll placed him at 36%. A CNN survey put him at 35%, 1 point from his all-time low in that pollster's history. On the economy, the issue Trump won on in 2024, just 29% of Americans approved of his handling of rising prices. According to Reuters Ipsos, that figure fell below the lowest economic approval rating ever, recorded for his predecessor, Joe Biden, whose floor was 32%. Among independent voters, the voters who decide competitive House and Senate districts, Trump's approval sat at just 22% in the YouGov Economist Tracking Survey. A Fox News poll found Republican net approval of Trump had fallen 14 points in just 3 months. By May 2026, his net approval rating, approval minus disapproval, had fallen to -34. In March 2025, that number was -6. The drop was not subtle, it was a collapse. Prediction markets, which had given Republicans a 14% chance of retaining both chambers, watched Democratic prospects climb to a 51% probability of a full sweep of Congress, up from 39% just 3 months earlier. The domino effect was in motion, but what was driving it, and who was quietly benefiting, is the part of this story most analysts were not yet saying out loud. Here is what the media was not telling you, clearly enough. This was not simply about Trump. This was not simply about affordability, or gas prices, or an unpopular war. This was the iron law of American midterms reasserting itself, and it has been hiding in plain sight for nearly a century. Since 1934, the president's party has lost seats in the House in 37 of the past 40 midterm elections. The 3 exceptions, Franklin Roosevelt in 1934, Bill Clinton in 1998, and George W. Bush in 2002, all shared one thing: approval ratings. approaching or exceeding 70%, driven by extraordinary historic circumstances. The New Deal, a federal surplus during an impeachment backlash. The rally around the flag effect of September 11th, Trump entering the 2026 midterms with approval ratings between 31 and 41%, depending on the pollster, had none of those conditions. And the Brookings Institution noted, as early as August 2025, that after the 2024 elections, Republicans held only 220 seats, just 2 above the majority threshold in the post-2000 era. The correlation between national vote swing and seat changes had become nearly linear. The structural trap had been set before the first vote of Trump's second term was cast. There is a third layer to this story. The hidden beneficiary of this perpetual volatility is not a political party. It is the campaign industry itself, the consultants, the super PACs, the media organizations, the digital advertising platforms, all of whom generate vastly more revenue in a volatile, high-anxiety political environment than in an era of stable governance. In 2024 alone, total political advertising spend exceeded $12 billion. According to data from the tracking firm Instability is not just a political problem, it is a business model. Here's what history tells us about where America goes from here, from 1934 to 2018. According to the Brookings Institution, the party in the White House lost an average of 28 House seats and 4 Senate seats in midterm elections. In wave environments, defined as a national vote swing of 10 or more points, those losses compound dramatically. The 6 special elections held between 2025 and 2026 showed an average swing toward Democratic candidates of approximately 15 points. Democrats needed a net gain of just 5 seats to retake the House. If that happens, and by mid-2026, Kalshi prediction markets gave Democrats a 73% probability of flipping the House, the United States enters divided government for the remainder of Trump's second term. Executive orders continue, legislation stalls, gridlock becomes the default setting in Washington, and then the clock starts again. The 2028 presidential election. The 2030 the cycle turns. But here's a deeper risk that very few experts are modeling. A structural volatility rate of 11 flips in 13 elections does not just produce policy instability, it produces institutional erosion. Each new majority arrives with a mandate to undo what the last majority built. Laws are passed and then reversed. Agencies are created and then dismantled. Alliances are forged and then abandoned. For America's allies in London, Brussels, and Canberra, this is not an abstraction. It is a strategic planning nightmare. No treaty, no trade deal, no security commitment can be assumed to survive 2 election cycles. America is not broken, but it is caught in a cycle. It has not yet found a way to escape. Let us know in the comments what you think. And in the meantime, thank you very much for watching.